Alright, everyone, welcome. Today I'm giving a class. We're going to be going over FM 3-90, which is a tactics field manual provided by the headquarters of the Army. Publication of May 2023. And for this portion, we're only going to cover chapter 1 because the fucking manual is 480 books, chapters, and then probably a bunch of subdivision books you have to read. But we won't be covering the entire thing. And I won't be reading every single fucking passage or section, whatever. We are going to just dissolve it into smaller portions just for review, because at the end of the day, if you want to pass the course, blah, 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 you got to read the fucking manual. And then you're going to have to apply it into whatever training simulator we get. So, if you want to pull out the book, you can look it up. It's free publication. Like, you can show this to people, whatever. You can go online, look it up. And, it supersedes the older versions, blah, blah, blah. It's an up-to-date section. So, Google it, man. You can Google it, put it on your phone if you want to read up, catch up, whatever. But we're going to start... We'll just together. I'll just read up some of those sections, the preface, whatever, introduction, and just saying, like, why are we doing this, blah, blah, blah. And then terminology they removed from the older versions. So we're going to start part 1, tactics overview, and we'll go from there. All right. So, intro to tactics. Just, if you have no clue or anything, all right, this is like the very boiled down definition of it, according to the Department of the Army. So, tactics are the employment, ordered arrangement, and directed actions of forces in relation to each other, right? So it's how you send them out, how you arrange them, and how you direct their actions in relation to other groups. And it's essentially that together is tactics, right? So you can have like individual tactics of like a small group of like 5 people, like a squad, doing mount operations, or you have like company sizes working with other companies, or stuff like battalions, divisions. They're all working in conjuncture together in different places, in different formations, doing different things together, right? That's essentially what it boils down to. And another term that's very important, right? Like everything's like an operation when you're referring to tactics. So the definition given by the Army is an operation is a sequence of tactical actions with a common purpose or unifying theme, right? So it's just tactical shit you do in an order usually. Operations usually aren't just like one single thing. It is multiple steps in conjunction to do something, right? With a common purpose or unifying theme. So it's like you can have operations to like do humanitarian relief, to attack a city, to defend a strong point, whatever, right? Or it can be like, and again, it can be at the same level, at smaller level, like squad level, battalion, company, division, whatever the fuck is higher above that. I don't fucking remember. I don't know, so whatever. But yeah, that's what it is essentially, right? So it boils down to, most people have like an understanding, right? And a lot of people, I think, modern day, well, it depends. If you have no knowledge or whatever, if you're a grunt, an officer, whatever, you might not have a single idea, right? Officers, sure, fucking no shit. But this is mainly intended, right, for like the lower enlisted. So like, right, you're at the bottom, right, of like the totem pole, officers, captains, lieutenants, first sergeant. Hold on, first sergeant should be up here he's gonna be up here, TBH, and NCOs, and then all the little guys, all the little grunts, all you guys. But you never know when when you can't talk to your captain, your first sergeant's out of line, your lieutenant's fucking dead, your NCO is dead too, and it's up to you guys to fucking, you know, complete the mission, blah blah blah. All your guys are fucking dead, or whatever. And it also helps for you to understand what the point of the missions are, right? So your captain, lieutenant, whatever, gives you the mission brief, whatever. You have your mission, and you're like, you don't understand why the fuck you're doing this, right? And it is essential, right, to you and for everyone, right, for the efficiency and how do I say this? You're gonna be more effective, right, if you understand why, right, why you are doing this mission, right? If you can understand the why and the how, because usually they just explain the how, but not the why. And you need to understand that to understand how this mission or operation is affecting the overall status of the entire group, right? And once you understand why it's being done, you can implement better things during your mission. So you can be aware, okay, like they want us to be friendlier with the locals, right? Our mission is to we're trying to do this, right? We're trying to take this compound, but at the same time our overall mission in the region is to have friendly connections, right? So we have to be more cognizant of how we're acting and how we're treating the local populace. And it's stuff like that. And if it was like, we're just passing by, we need to get this done no matter what, right? And then from there you can realize, okay, this might not look good for the locals and whatever, but we need to do this to accomplish the mission. It's stuff like that that just gives you a better idea. And that's why at the point of teaching these tactics to like, you have a better fundamental understanding of shit, right? It just helps you at the end of the day. All right, next part. All right, we're gonna skip over like some of the operational environment part, because it's like stupid. It's like, yeah, you gotta think about your area, like, yeah, the air, sea, space, land, whatever. Like, yeah, like I think that's kind of redundant for like most people understand that, at least that level. But I did want to point out, in case you don't know, in mission variables down at 1-8, I do want to make sure you guys understand 1-7, 1-8. What METTC is, right? It's a term that's always thrown around, whenever you're doing shit. It's like METTC, oh, blah blah blah. This is METTC dependent, blah 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 blah. Sometimes it's a fucking cop out, but sometimes it's a very legit thing that you should think about. Well, it's an issue, comes up with training, right? But it's an acronym to help you remember that all your missions, anything you do, well, let me read you what the Army says. METTC, because this is also technically, but whatever, represent the mission variables leaders use to analyze and understand a situation in relationship to the unit's mission, right? So it's variables that will affect any mission you do, right? And it affects training, right? Because if you want to have realistic training, you should consider METTC, right? Because at the end of the day, you can do like assaulting a building and shit, right? And you want to train realistically, but you're like, I don't know this shit. I don't know, like, wait, you guys don't fucking know. I'm getting ahead of myself, okay? Hey, look, if I'm getting ahead, say something. So let's cover what it says, right, before I cover that. So M in METTC stands for, it's a mnemonic. You know what I mean. All the fucking letters mean something. So let's go with this. So the 7 mission variables are, variables are M, it's for the mission, right? For the actual objective that you were trying to achieve. They don't really explain it, but I'm a fucking freeball it. And then E is the enemy. So you have to the enemy forces. You always have to consider them, right? Because you have to think about the numbers they have, the positions, the equipment, the firepower, or whatever, what control they have, their influence in the region, blah blah blah, right? So the enemy, obviously, the mission and enemy. That's what matters really. The points that matter, and then the terrain. You're gonna do the fucking mission at. Like, obviously, you have to think about if there's mountainous terrain, if you're gonna have to bring vehicles, how you're gonna deal with the vehicles, how you're gonna maneuver your vehicles in said terrains, whatever, right? Well, this one's technically terrain slash. Well, terrain slash is gonna make you think it's either or, but it's plus weather. So whenever you think of your terrain, you think of the weather as well, because the weather influences how you're gonna navigate your terrain. Like if it's raining, the mountains, you don't know if it's gonna be you're gonna be risk some mudslides and stuff like that. So always think about that. Troops. So then you gotta think about your people. What available personnel do you have? What units available do you have to assist you? And troops, as well comes to support, like the support for the troops, or supports the support that is gonna help your troops on your mission. So always think about what else is available in your company or like battalion level, right? Like we have, let's say you're attached to whatever infantry, and you have to go on a mission, right? It's like, oh, we have an artillery company, or battery, whatever the fuck they're called, and we can ask for artillery, right, during the mission. So like that's, you can account that into your plan. And like, okay, we have this available, blah blah blah, from these other groups or any other friendly units or militaries around. Available, and then time. So they like to say time available. So you have to think about your time frame, right? Like, how is this a limited time frame for this mission to be accomplished? So we have a time limit on this, or like, that's really the main thing, right? Like, it's the time limits, how we're gonna accomplish this within a timely manner, or like, we have this frame of operations, and if we can't conduct it during this time, we have to move, we have to change our mission structure or plan to accommodate for that, right? And because obviously if you want to do something now, you can't, there's not as much detailed planning you can do. Or if you want to, we can push it back, make a better plan, but we just, the time frame is going to be different and stuff like that, right? The next one, so there's TTT, and then C is civil or civilian, civil considerations, but I always think of it as civilian, but civil works as well. Because when I first learned this, because this changes every fucking year, because people always take out civil considerations is kind of new for some people. So there was a kind of like, oh, what the fuck? Back in my day, I didn't know. It was just met TC and blah 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 blah. But they change all the time. So civil considerations. You have to think about if there's a civilian populace present, if there's civilian infrastructure. Like you're in a city, again, you want to attack a compound. You have artillery available, but like we can't just shell the fucking city that we're operating in, because there might be civilians, or we might hit a different structure, right? It's gonna affect everything else, right? It's all together, the variables and stuff like that. The way I think about it is civilian population and civilian infrastructure. I guess also like, I say like their attitude, right? The civilian feel towards your presence, that can also be, you should consider that, because in this part of town they don't really like us, so let's kind of avoid that area, or like let's not do this and this to make them like more pissed at us, whatever, right? Stuff like that you have to account for. And then this I, which for me is new too when I learned this, it stands for informational. Formational consideration. But this is kind of like you're already kind of meant to be thinking about that as you're planning your mission, as you're considering various variables. But they added it. That's why it's in like the parentheses. It's affecting all of it. Well, it's like I don't know. They just want you to be aware of it, right? That it's the way they describe it. Okay, let me read you exactly how it says here on 1-8. Due to this, wait, no. The first six, okay, let me see. Represents the mission variables leaders use to analyze and understand a situation to the unit's mission. The first six variables are not new. However, the persuasiveness of information and its applicability in different military contexts require leaders to continuously assess its various aspects during operations. Due to this, I has been added to the METC mnemonics. Information considerations are expressed as a parenthetical variable because it is not independent consideration, but an important component of variables of METC that leaders must understand when developing understanding of a situation. Oh, fuck. Yeah, and then it sends you to a different fucking field manual tool to think about that. Well, no, it sends you to like a different chapter. But yeah, so all of these are like independent at the end of the day, right? Like, okay, yeah, the information, right? I'm like, that's not right. But the information you have, you have to think about it. What information you're gonna give away to the enemy. I'm pretty sure that's what it means. We can talk about it more in depth in a different chapter. But so you just gotta consider that whenever you're thinking about your mission and whatnot. So just make sure you understand that. So like I was saying before, the issue, it also applies when you're training, right? Like right now we're talking about text, but it's also important for training, right? That's the issue we have a lot here. So always back to the compound, right? You have a building, and this isn't a training site, whatever. It's a single building because all the when you go out there in the training sites, there's always like wood lines and shit out on like the training sites. So the higher ups always are like, oh, we want this to be like really realistic and blah blah blah. There's like a road, right? And blah blah blah, but we don't have the equipment or the personnel or the whatever to make it realistic, so you guys are just gonna figure it out, which is fucking stupid, right? And then they get pissed when you do it the best way you can, and then blah blah blah, like, oh, this isn't really what we're aiming for. Blah, blah, blah. I'm just being fucking pissed. But right, you want to assault this building, but you're actually not allowed to cross this road because this is an active road where like military trucks are going across the overall like base, right? So like, okay, I guess we'll just pretend that we crossed it, and blah blah blah. And then you gotta think about like, we're gonna have guys in here, but they're just kind of doing like fuck whatever. So there's no actual like overall scheme, and you assault it, whatever. But we're not like, we ask about when you're doing this, we're not considering if there's people on the woods, if there's any traps or whatever. This is trapped. If there's enemy personnel, watching the building with exterior security, or if they can engage us outside as we're approaching. I just kind of drew whatever, but it's usually they would have external security in the building, watching the road. But no, we're not gonna do that because blah blah blah. So shit like that, and then like your mission, its equipment, enemies, blah blah blah. And then the weather, how the weather changes. Usually shit like that's like pretty well. That's not that hard to figure out, but it's like usually you don't ever train really for civilian considerations, right? And obviously when you're training, you can't like do something like, I want to blow up this door when I'm breaching, but we don't have doors to blow up, so we're not gonna do that. Like, okay, so I guess we're just gonna like shitty pretend to do it. Like, it's just dumb shit like that you're gonna see very often. You're gonna get shit for it because you're like, so we're skipping. We're in rule of tactics, joint operations, multi-domain operations, because it's like, it's stupid shit, like very obvious. Like, oh, if you come together, you can accomplish more in your operation, and then there's multiple domains in an operation. Like you got to think about like the joint fire satellite communication. It's like there's all these different systems working together to complete the mission. Like yeah, no fucking doubt. So it's fucking whatever, bro. Like genuinely, like whatever. Like if you can't make that level of like thinking, like I'm sorry, bro. Probably get out of here. All right. So we're gonna cover the types of operations we're doing. Like every operation we do is gonna fall into one of these four categories. It should, yeah. It should. It really should. It really fucking should. So let's start with the first one. Offensive operations, as by the Army, according in -1-17, it says an offensive operation is an operation to defeat or destroy enemy forces, gain control of terrain, resources, and population centers. Right. So, like the classic example, you got your company, whatever, moves in, destroy. I forgot what how the fuck did they do in an enemy company. I forgot how to do it. I think it's just a different color. You move to destroy an enemy, right? And an example. And if you go down the next page, it's like a army tactical taxonomy. So it's like actually giving you all of the names of like most stuff. Attack, ambushes, counterattacks, rapid attacks, spoiling attacks. Those are all offensive. You go kill the enemy, right? Destroy, right? That's what it is. So defensive operation, that's what most people know, right? It's an operation to defeat enemy attack, gain time, economize forces, and develop conditions favorable for offenses or stability operations, right? And this is the opposite, right? We are trying to survive a attack or some sort of offensive operation from the enemy on us, right? We are trying to withstand this attack or whatever. I don't know. You know what I mean. We're trying to withstand it, or we're trying to. What's the other word for this? Let me explain this. Gain time, right? Like if we're trying to gain time for another unit to move out, or for them to come back to help us conduct an offensive operation to gain more firepower to go to attack them. Economize forces is to just prevent like us just getting people killed for no reason, right? So like if we were to counterattack them here, they might be. It's not going to be beneficial, right? It might not be. So we're going to defend against it. And keep more of our guys. Well, we're still going to cost them resources, right? Because there's always going to be a cost, right? Like whenever we attack, we don't expect everyone to like come out uninjured. And when we're defending, we don't expect everyone to be dandy right after. Fine dandy. But we hope to strike a blow at them while repelling their attack. As we're repelling the attack, that's to say. And develop conditions for offensive or stability operations. So like, again, like we defended a city, right? Now we can maintain a stronghold in the region to propel offensive operations out of this city outwards into enemy territory. Stuff like that, right? Or like we're still maintaining civilian population and economy by protecting them and whatever, right? That's like a defensive operations. So that's pretty easy to understand, right? Offensive, defensive. So now to like a bit more of a like long-term stuff that might not affect you guys, and it's more like higher level officer stuff, but it's still important because you'll be like, why the fuck are we doing this bullshit? Why are we out here doing nothing? We're helping these civilians just do this shit, blah blah blah, whatever. But there's a reason for it. So stability operations is an operation conducted outside the United States in coordination with other instruments of national power to establish or maintain a secure environment and provide essential governmental services, emergency infrastructure construction, and humanitarian relief. So, like that, right? there's people we want to help them, and I like the way they say. I kind of like the way they say it. Conducted outside the U.S., right? Because if it's done in the U.S., that's just like us helping people. It's a different type of thing, I think. So it is just to like help the people. That's what it really is. Help the people. Help give them governmental services, right? So there's like still law and order is still kept intact. Government functions, mayor, emergency infrastructure reconstruction. So if it's destroyed, we can help rebuild hospitals, like essential services, fire stations, maintain food distribution, logistics into the cities. Cities are like population centers. That's the correct terminology. Um, and just so people feel safe, right? They're not being attacked and killed by enemy forces on the daily in their own population center city, whatever. And humanitarian, just general humanitarian relief. So that was pretty easy to understand. It's just help maintain / improve area situation, whatever, right? Situation. I don't know if that's what shut up. So enabling, right? This is going back to now offensive defensive operations. So an enabling operation is an operation that sets the friendly conditions required for mission accomplishment, right? So as I continue, by themselves enabling operations do not directly accomplish the commander's end state and are not decisive on their own, but are required to conduct successful offensive, defensive, and stability operations. Enabling operations can also be described or as listed as key tasks during execution of a mission. So it's just their fancy way of saying like these are stuff you have to do to get ready, right? It's like your prep. So right, you want to do like let's say you want to the main mission or operation isn't we're attacking, right? Or like ambush, right? So before that we have to move people. There's like logistics, right? To get people there, right? And that's like an entire thing. We have to move vehicles. You have to move shit, right? Or like in the area we want to have. So it's just like a substance, right? You break down your mission to your sections, right? And here's your main section, and here's like all your enabling shit, so you can get to this point, right? And then blah blah blah, right? That's essentially what they're saying, right? So anything before that, so logistics, moving vehicles right now, because maneuvers are a type of operation. Like when there's a big group and you have to move to a certain place, you have to do that in a certain manner, organized and tactically, depending on the conditions. And those are operations, enabling operations. So that's just essentially what they're saying. And the other word they mentioned, decisive operation. So when the Army speaks about decisive operations, it's more like this is a key moment for the entire overarching mission in the region or the area, right? Like, let me think of it. Like in Ukraine, I can't remember what operation is, right? So like they're holding back, right? They're holding a line against Russian forces or whatever. And they have a city, right? So the battle for this city is the decisive. I'm spelling that right. Decisive for the entire region, because if this falls, then they'll spill into the next city or town, or whatever, right? They'll lose all this area if they fail. But if they can repel it back, right, they can maintain the area, and that's essential for the mission. It'll change the entire way it's set up. So it's decisive. That's what they're always referring to when they're speaking about that kind of shit. All right, for the last section, I was gonna cover the warfighting functions that they mention in a bit more detail. I'll be using ADP 3-0 Unified Field Land Operations, October 2011, to like help me explain a bit more. Right. So the 6 functions that they talk about: command and control, which it used to be called mission command. It develops and integrates those activities, enabling a commander to balance the art of command and the science of control. It's just a bunch of just army bullshit. So it's just saying like all the shit, influence and to inform and influence audiences inside and outside their organizations. Okay, this is all bullshit, but you know, fucking army. It's just like army talk. You need the commander over whatever operations doing or mission, whatever, has to have command, has to be able to command the troops and communicate with them, and be able to control their actions and movements. So, because he, at the end of the day, he's the one that has the best understanding of like what everyone else is doing, because they can't really, sometimes they can't communicate between each other, each like little unit you're having. So that's the main part, right? Is to command and control. Movement and maneuver. It's like how your units are moving across during your operation, right? How they're doing it, if they're doing like tactically, you know, they're being quiet and whatnot, if they're on foot in vehicles or in aircrafts, and how they're maneuvering when they're engaging near enemies, right? So if they're in combat or whatever, in contact, you know, they're gonna maneuver around to this point. If they have to fall back, they have to do it at this point and this point. They're gonna go this fast at this time. They should be here. Blah blah blah. Right? That's how what movement and maneuver can boil down to. And the way they're saying is retarded. So, intelligence. You know, it's just like what information you have about the enemy terrain, civilian considerations, and like what you need to accomplish these tasks and stuff like that. Fires. So it's like it's just a conjunction of like indirect fire, air and missile defense, joint fires through the targeting process, which is just dumb. It's like how you're gonna get firepower onto the enemy, right, outside of like your direct fire that you have. And then sustainment. How are you going to sustain your guys, right? Like, if this is a multi-day operation, how are we gonna keep our guys up? Are we gonna have to like switch them out? Are we gonna take a couple days to break? Like, you know, have breaks to let them recover, recoup? How are we gonna get them food? How are we gonna get them ammunition, fuel, medical supplies, stuff like that? You gotta think about that. And then protection. How about we protecting them from, like, okay, let me read it the way the army says. The protection warfighting function is the related task in systems that preserve the force so the commander can apply maximum combat power to accomplish the mission. Preserving the force includes protecting personnel, friendly combatants and non-combatants, and physical assets of the United States, host nation, and multinational military and civilian partners. So I guess that's fucking more than I thought. So it's like protecting ourselves, right? So we can stay at maximum firepower, right? Because when we leave, we have a projected firepower that they're like keeping in their head, right? And as the mission goes on, it's gonna obviously deplete. We're not gonna be as strong as we were when we stepped off. So what are we gonna be doing to try to maintain that? And at the same time protecting any friendly personnel we have that aren't actively in combat in the mission, or if we have any non-combatants like POWs. No, it's not POWs. It's enemy prisoners of war, not EPW, or detainees, or whatever, or just civilians that we have with us if we are like helping them transport, whatever. Or like in our equipment, what are we doing to protect our equipment, or in the equipment of the nation that we're at, or other militaries that we're functioning with alongside. And that's really, this kind of stuff is like the main things, like the main principles that you're gonna be thinking about when accomplishing shit. The issue with I have with this kind of stuff is that it's like it's just kind of redundant. You feel like the other stuff already talked about, just your own tactics. But I think it's just good overall, right? Because it's like different ways if you want to think about stuff. Just whenever you're doing anything, tactics wise, just doing in general anything at all. Keep stuff like this in mind, because you're like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Think about like how does it fit within these schemes? And it's like, oh, maybe there is a reason why we're doing this and that. And it'll help you accomplish your shit better because you'll not be stupid. Alright, that's for like this part, because there's still like 500 more pages to read. It's more in detailed sections of like what, like, the rest of the book goes on about like, breaks down like what each offensive operation does, what each defensive operation does, and like, the general like thought process that you're having between it, right? Like, but it's kind of boiled down. And if you like still kind of don't get stuff like this, I suggest you to read. I know it's like a common point for like a lot of people, like, they kind of make fun of you, like, oh, look at this fucking officer or whatever. Motherfucker only read Sun Tzu Art of War, right? But I think the Art of War by Sun Tzu. I think I'm saying that. Fuck it. I'm guessing it. I don't remember what his name what his name actually is. Well, like, how to spell it. But The Art of War, I think, is a very important. I think it's a good read. I'm not gonna say it's fundamental to like how we progressed in this thought process. Because at the end of the day, this alone isn't really gonna win you, right? Anything. You still have to go out and do stuff, but it's just the way you're gonna think about it and how you're gonna plan it. But I think, because he wrote it for like for like higher ups in like the Qing Dynasty, I want to say. But he wrote it for people that have never been outside like their grand palaces in like China or whatever, and didn't really understand like the very basics of warfare. Like, because he says obviously very, like, now you think about it, it's like, that's kind of obvious, right? Like, to sustain your that it's at the end of the day, like, it's more of like you have to sustain your army, right? There's no point having like a big military or big force if you can't sustain it, or like stuff like when you are weak, appear strong, and when you're strong, appear weak. Like, obviously you're like inviting enemies to fight you when you are trying to, like, when you have the upper hand, stuff like that. Don't show your hand, stuff like that. You get that level. And like how to sustain your military by taking crops from like the civilian area that you're passing by. You shouldn't like go be pillaging and razing the towns you're going through, right? Because at the end of the day, these are the people that you're trying to like win over, right? And stuff like that's like little stuff like that you'll be like, when I read it, I was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. That is, now that I think about it, that is how I should be thinking and whatnot. Obviously, and then people like take stuff out of context for like other stuff that doesn't really make sense. But it's different thought processes. Don't let it like be your entire thing. It's something to add to the multiple tools and ideologies you can use for your day-to-day life, be it in the military or in your civilian life, whatever, right? But yeah. So, I guess you're dismissed. I don't know if you have other classes or whatever, but take a break, whatever. Go to sleep, take your nap. If I already see so many people are fucking asleep because obviously not paying attention. Whatever, you're gonna get fucked anyways. But okay. Alright. Okay, bye-bye. Bye.